on the air at the World Pork Expo. I think that we started this tremendously well yesterday, and how I know that is throughout the course of the day I had people telling me, Jim McCoy, what it is that we talked about. So I'm thinking that what you say might make its way around to the fairground, so make sure it's truth. I'm Trent Luce. What we're going to do is introduce everyone, allow them to tell you who they are. Not that they need introduction to you, but everybody at home that's listening and watching will be able to watch forever archived on the internet, where you're from and your involvement in the pork industry, and then we'll go from there.
Jim McCoy from Bloomingburg, Ohio. Own and operate Real McCoy Genetics, show pig and boar stud operation. We keep about 50 boars at stud and have about 100 sows for show pig production. Been doing our entire lives. Son's back home from college to run the breeding herd, and I run the boar stud. And I'm currently the chairman of the youth advisory board for the NJSA.
Steve Rodabaugh, Rensselaer, Indiana. I farm with three brothers, Jack Rodabaugh and Sons. Operation started in 1950. We grain farm a little over 2,000 acres, run about 300 sows, producing show pigs and breeding stock.
Bob Liston, El Reno, Oklahoma. I'm an agriculture education instructor and FFA advisor there for the last 22 years. I grew up on a spotted hog farm. I'm in charge of about 100 sows there locally with my kids, show pig breeding operations.
I'm Brandon Ogle from Nokomis, Illinois. I run my own show pig operation with about 60 sows of pure and crosses, and also employed by Top Cut Genetics.
We're going to start out with a question as it relates to the young people that we have here. Bob Liston, 22 years educating young people as an ag teacher. We've seen a new wave of what we would call non-traditional farm kids coming into the mix. What brings them, and what does it take to inspire them to stay involved in production agriculture beyond their FFA days?
Well, at El Reno, I'm in charge of the swine program and our FFA program, part of the livestock showing, and I found it a very valuable tool through show pigs and connection between show pigs, young people, and their families. I've got several stories I could tell you, but I've had a few students over the years that it's changed their lives. I mean, actually buying a pig and raising it to market weight and showing it has actually changed their path of their life path, their career path. I can think of one instance. I had a student that his grades were bad. He was poor family life at home. I bought him a pig as a freshman, and he took to it and the work ethic and taking care of it every day and stayed with it for 4 years. And he'll tell you today, he's probably 31 or 2 years old, that he wouldn't have graduated high school if it hadn't been for those show pigs that kept him interested. They kept him motivated to do his grades, because before he came into my program, he was flunking every class. And he ended up being probably a high B, low A student when he graduated. So that was one instance that means a lot to me, that these kids will get in there and find something positive to do instead of something negative. I use a lot of instances where I got kids that they Friday and Saturday night, you know what you can get into on the streets. You know, El Reno's a fairly big town, and a lot of negative things you can get into, and those kids will be at a pig show on Friday night and show Saturday morning, and they're with productive kids along with productive families, and their surroundings are so much more inducive to learning and doing things positive than hanging around with nothing to do on the streets, getting into drugs, alcohol, whatever you can do at the nightlife. I've seen a big impact on those kind of kids. And my kids have grown up through the show program as well, and I feel comfort with them being with me on weekends showing pigs, family activities, than I do them running around, at night not having anything to do. But those kind of things there have been real detrimental to my program and changed the lives of others. I've had kids that were homeless that found a way to get a job, make enough money to take care of their pig. And now those kids are on. I got one kid that he was homeless, and he's now an ag teacher and helping pay him back to the community. So it's been a real rewarding life experience for me and the kids.
Anybody want to follow up on that? Because I have a follow-up. It just hit me, Bobby, as you were talking about that. We have a lot of people talking about unwanted pets, and we talk about unwanted horses. It's a shocking number that 1.4 million kids in America are abandoned. And it's programs like FFA and 4-H that bring those kids back to a sense of accomplishment. Along those lines, Brandon, and I want everybody to weigh in along this, I think we need to seize the opportunity because we recently had the Department of Labor talk about kids on farms is dangerous, and we should not allow kids to work with male hogs, with sows that have litters, if they're not at least 16 years of age. How would you respond, or how did you respond to the Department of Labor talking about it's too dangerous for our young people to be working on farms and ranches?
With that subject being fairly fresh, and I think a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, about just misinformed. I mean, people, they mock what they don't understand. And I think that's one thing that we could do a better job of as an industry is it seems like we sit back on our heels and take a lot of punches with bad publicity and stuff like that. I mean, just watching the news here this morning, local Des Moines news, they had some protesters that were here. They showed from yesterday. And it seems like we see a lot of that and take a lot of that, but we don't necessarily, punch back and just portray our industry and show them the way that these animals are taken care of and the family, how it's involved, living the life of shavings and show feed and brushing and rinsing and all of that. I think it would be a great thing to show people outside of our little world how those are maintained. And as far as to the production agriculture, in my opinion, again, it's kind of like Big Bob said, there's a lot of worse things that go on outside of the world that are more dangerous than taking care of a sow or a male hog. There's bigger fish to fry, maybe. I mean, it feels like they're nitpicking on you a little bit with that. So I think that, again, to show the life skills and responsibilities and family time that is taken care of through work or through activities like showing or something that we need to maybe do a better job of publicizing, kind of like we are here right now.
Big Bob, that's your new name, Big Bob.
Big Bob.
You want to add
That's
to that?
my old name.
Your old name? Bigger Bob. Anything quick you want to add to that?
I think that's pretty good.
Well, I think it shows that our leaders and politicians and activists are out of touch when they talk about kids working on farms. They don't understand. They think we're exploiting them, and it's just the opposite. That we're building the leaders of tomorrow, and that most of these kids that are working on farms are doing it by choice. And there's a lot of those kids that may not be family members, that it changes their life and it gives them something to be motivated to do. Even in our small town, there's some at-risk kids, that we've been involved with that may have gone down a really different path, if not for working on the farm. And I think people, it gets to be, an easy thing to say, to criticize and say, well, a kid shouldn't be out on the farm, it's dangerous, it's this or that. But I think in agriculture, those kids that do those kind of things and are involved in those kind of things, I think we build some of the best leaders for the future through those activities.
Two words come to mind, common sense, and the world's kind of losing track of it quite a bit. Granted, if you have a boar, you have a male hog that is a 500-pound boar, you don't set a 3-year-old child in that pen, and they're trying to basically make it sound like we have no common sense to do the right thing in the right situations. I've got pictures of my kids when they were 2, 3 years old and standing in a farrowing crate next to a litter of pigs. Now they're not directly in line with that sow to where she can get a hold of him if she has the motherly instinct and wants to snap. I mean, you just do the right thing and having common sense. Those kids grow up in this type of situation, and it gives them a sense of responsibility. Gives them a work ethic. You don't overwork them. You just give them something to do. And I've got a 7-year-old right now that he wants clean pens. He wants to scrape pens out, and that's one of his favorite things to do. And don't make him do it. He just wants to do it. He wants to know when he can go to the barn to get that accomplished. So it teaches a work ethic, not afraid to get dirty and not afraid to be out there with animals. And this whole I know we'll talk about it there in a little bit with the NJSA and everything, but this whole thing is a lot bigger than the pig. It's a kid thing, and I think that's what they need to realize is that all the good things that are happening.
One kid every 3 days dies on school property with a heart attack in a athletic-related event. 4 times the number of kids that die on farms in work-related accidents. So I echo your sentiments and common sense. Steve, I was speaking at a pork producer meeting in Minnesota, and I mentioned that I have 40 sows, part of the show pig industry, and I'm following up on your out-of-touch comment, in that somebody came up to me and chastised me for continuing to raise show pigs because we're not teaching those kids about real pork production, that these kids are out of touch. And as you were talking about out of touch, I saw kids showing pigs that many people in the varied industries building would say are not even close to the real hogs that we produce in this country. Are we balancing reality of pork production with the show pig sector?
Well, I think yeah, we are. I mean, in production agriculture, real production food agriculture, economics are such that operations are larger, and so there's fewer farm families that are able to make a living with 80 sows and 500 acres, and so the show pig industry, I think, provides the perfect opportunity for those families and those kids to stay involved and learn the values that kids grew up with on the farm. A lot of these kids are removed from the farm by several generations, and even the people in our industry that criticize the show part, I think, don't understand the good that comes from it. In what we're teaching these kids and the good things that it's providing for families.
Yeah, as I'd mentioned, it's so much bigger than the pig. It's in the NJSA. It's there's leadership conferences. We just had a leadership conference in California just a few weeks ago. Watching those kids grow through some of the seminars and different workshops that the junior board members themselves put on, and watching them grow through that entire weekend and getting leadership skills. Basically, it's really ingrained into these kids. That the communication skills that they get through some of these programs and meeting other people around the country, the communication skills, regardless of whether you're a pork producer in the end or whether you're a car salesman or a congressman or the next president, what have you, the communication skills that you take from this junior program are going to be the most important things that you ever do. Actually getting comfortable enough to get a hold of a microphone and stand up and talk in front of people. I was very introverted in school, red in the face when anybody would ever address me by myself, just one-on-one, and or have to get up in front of a class. And because I had to give those extemporaneous speeches and stuff in FFA, those type of things, you were made to do it. That made me comfortable enough and basically shaped my entire life.
And now you can talk on the World Wide Web to the entire globe and be comfortable, right, Bob?
No problem. Whoever asked you that question, I'd like for him to bring them to El Reno, Oklahoma. I think we'd changed their mind. We started that program there, and those kids were just buying a show pig and showing it, and it developed into a production program where those families were raising their own show pigs and then selecting from those and taking them to the show from what they produced. And I saw more pride in those kids and families of showing a pig that they raised, from breeding the sow to the farrowing to learning how to ear notch, to getting into the sales part of it, to sell the rest of your litter. Those kids gained a lot of knowledge, and through the facet of that, they learned how to have communication skills, worked on their salesmanship, meeting new breeders, being a mentor to younger kids and selling them pigs, and through this process have learned a lot about the production end of the hog industry, all the way up to showing their hog and then taking those hogs to the butcher and putting food on the table. So I believe my kids, probably 80% of them raise their own pigs, and you know, they've learned a lot from start to finish. I got one example of a kid that had a sow that had a problem and couldn't have her pigs, and I got a good vet there, and it actually was his son that the litter was she couldn't have him, so he done a C-section on the sow, lost all the pigs but one barra pig, and he kind of had to, you know, be milk fed and kind of become a family pet for whatever you want to say, and so they decided to feed it, and that hog was grand champion to Hawaii that year. So just neat stories like that. You know, I was the only survivor of that litter and beat, you know, 3,500 head of hogs at the end. You know, so that was one of the more memorable stories I had from a production standpoint. But those kids that we deal with, they can answer about any questions you want about the pork industry and from start to finish.
Well, I'd echo a lot of the similar comments the rest of the guys have made, especially there with Jim. I mean, I think a lot of it's just people skills and communication skills and self-confidence. And when I first started, I got a late start to this whole thing myself, and I didn't. I would say the livestock judging thing in my FFA program to get me in front of people to give a set of reasons. I mean, be enough to wet my pants. It was a hard thing, and then to be able to get on a microphone and do something like this or judge a major stock show, if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I'd have laughed you out of the room. And it was from activities like this and FFA and 4-H livestock judging and showing livestock and being around people of what enabled me to do that.
I'll tell you how I answered his question. I said, don't forget, and I stole this, by the way, from Dan Hogue, who I gave credit to, and then he said he stole it from somebody who judged Houston. Don't forget, we're not using the kids to make livestock better. We're using livestock to make the kids better. That's really what you all said in a nutshell. I don't know if you heard about yesterday or not. We had some pretty sharp criticism geared towards particularly Hampshire breeders. In fact, the quote was somewhere along the lines, if you had 600 Hampshire appearing hogs at one of the southern stock shows, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, wherever you want to go, Fort Worth, that if they had to have a pedigree and if they had to be purebred Hamps, they wouldn't be 10 of them that were worth having. I've got 3 Hampshire breeders. A couple of them were breeding back at the time that dinosaurs stopped, and I got a spot breeder. I got breeders here today. So let's talk about breeding hogs. Are we breeding hogs today? Are we multiplying hogs? Or how do we make them better? Jim McCoy.
We're breeding hogs. We're not just multiplying cookie cutter type situations, especially in the show industry. The genetics that are available today, your choices are so much with AI being available to where basically you can literally just go catalog, website to website, pick and choose what genetics it is you want to use. And these shows, these junior shows, the open class shows, the ability to be able to purchase all these different animals that are built so different, and basically just trying to make a more elite individual. You're not trying to make a freak. You're basically trying to make the best balanced package you can, stretch the limits of nature the best you can as far as making them, as far into 3 dimensions as you can without messing up structure, and making them to where they're still able to grow and be productive and function. And still have a good edible product, because we are a product-driven industry, and so it's a huge challenge. That's what makes it fun. If it was easy, everybody'd do it, and we'd probably find something else to do, because the challenge of basically being able to make those choices and put genetics together that you feel will work. And sometimes you scratch your head after you get a litter of pigs. It's like, why in the world did I do that, or how did that happen? That's genetics. It's not machines. It's genetics, and that's what makes it fun. And you drop back and punt sometimes, and come back and do it again a different way and see what works. And it's that's what the blast of building hogs is. So yeah, we're definitely breeding hogs, trying to put together as a lead a set of individuals of multiple breeds and crosses, and blending it together.
Along those lines, Steve, Jack Rodabaugh bred hogs around sow families. If you do what Jim said, you have the opportunity to use 2 doses of semen here, 2 doses of semen there, and not breed around sow families like your father did back in those days. So has that changed things as it relates to breeding hogs?
Oh yeah, I think it definitely has. The advent of AI, changed our industry tremendously. Some for the good and some for the negative. The good is that the genetics that are available to everyone. Whether you've got 2 sows or 2,000 sows, and whether you're in the Midwest, the Southwest, or in Montana. The negative of it is that if people don't continue to be free thinkers and do their own thing, then you tend to maybe over multiply use of a particular boar because somebody else told you he was good. And so that's the positives and negatives of the AI. In terms of how breeding programs are run, generally at our farm, I'll speak to our experience and our philosophy. We like to breed in sow families. If we find a boar that we like, I would much rather use him across the sow herd, the entire sow herd, where I can learn more quicker about the boar and hopefully get a more consistent crop of pigs. I may not hit a home run, but if I can get that consistency in the sows, then those sows will carry me when I make a wrong decision on a herd sire. They will not set me back so far that I can't recover, as opposed to a more shotgun approach. If I took my 20 best sows and bred them to 20 different boars, I don't think I'm going to end up with as good a crop of pigs as if I bred them all to one boar. I'm not that smart, and I don't think anybody is. And so it's interesting to look at different breeders and their philosophies. But I think if you look at the breeders that stand the test of time and have some consistency, they'll use one animal across the sow herd, and their sow herd will be consistent, and it makes them easier then if you know your sow herd to select your next sire, because that's really the most important thing in breeding hogs. Is you have to be able to know your sow herd, and you have to be able to be critical of it to be able to know what you need for in that next sire.
My situation's a little bit different. I've got some personal sows, about 10 spotted sows. My partner over here, we got about 40 belted crossbred sows. And then I deal with about every breed with my kids, my egg kids. We got all 8 breeds. Small herds within 5 sows to 20 sows that add up to around 100 there at home. So mine's a little bit different. We used to use AI a bunch, and I found out not knowing the boars and not knowing their genetics as well, we'd cause ourselves a lot of problems and have to build our way back out of it. So we put in a couple of boar studs there locally, and they're small. You probably wouldn't know the name of most of them, but there's 2 or 3 in there that's probably raised the Grand Bear at Oklahoma City. I mean, we just kind of do it locally there. But, we put more emphasis on making better hogs on the sow. I mean, the boar, we just try to get a good boar that's bred good that don't mess the sow up. I mean, you get a good boar that'll work on several different sows, and sometimes that happens. A lot of times it doesn't. But 90% of the time, if you've got a real sound foundation sow, the boar, you can breed her to a lot of different kind of boars, and the pigs are going to be good every time. So we build around those sows and make better hogs that way. A lot of our boars, we've probably got 25 boars on stud there that we sell semen locally, and some out of state, mostly bear producing boars for the young people. But still, those boars have to produce gilts that we're going to use as keeper and replacements and have to be productive and sound and all the basics as well. So we just try to keep it pretty basic. As far as our part of the country is a little different down in Oklahoma and Texas than it is up here, per se, in Iowa and Indiana. Our market shows are based by weight. We don't have papers on those pigs, and because they're market animals. Now on our breeding gilts, they do have to supply the purebred papers, and we have a crossbred gilt show. But and it's been that way ever since I was born. We did try the papered barra deal one time, and it just didn't seem to work in our country. I mean, we had it for a year or two, and some of the breeds were, the crossbred program grew and the purebreds went down, so we went back to our old placement. But certainly I think we're breeding better hogs, but like you say, we're breeding better kids as well.
I definitely think we're breeding and making better hogs, and I guess I'm not a big person on telling somebody how to make their breeding decisions or tell them how to do their business. And I guess my 2 cents worth, I think that's where a lot of people, like you said, the comment made yesterday, a lot of people want everybody else to do it how they did. And if that was the case, we wouldn't need to have shows, because I wouldn't need to buy something from Steve or Bob or Jim that I needed to make improvements for me or maybe take my stuff one way or the other. So I don't quite get those critiques at times. But as far as making better hogs and stuff like that, as far as my 2 cents worth, I think everybody should kind of march to the beat of their own drum, and I just try to keep things as balanced and good built and sound as I can. That way, if things go one way or the other, I'm prepared to go with it and not have to turn a whole sow herd over if need be.
I want to go back and revisit something we talked about yesterday, because I think it can be a potential problem. The pork industry's had terminal lines, maternal lines, and it seems as though in the show pig world we're trying to blend those two. Brandon, we'll start with you. How do you maintain the balance, or do we simply need a maternal line to raise the pigs and then breed them to a boar that's more terminal in type? And then also along with that, the importance of purebreds in that cross and mix to get the perfect pig.
I think that's a great question, and I think I don't think we need to have maybe one line or the other. I think that's what makes it fun for me as far as making mating decisions and breeding decisions. It's trying to get that matched up right, and putting some miles on yourself or going to shows and looking at herd sires to match up with your sows. That's one of the fun things for me. And I'm 31 years old, and one of my favorite things is I still get I call it kid on Christmas morning feeling when you get that litter that you've been looking forward to. And when I don't have that feeling anymore, it's time to maybe get rid of that particular sow, or maybe for me to reevaluate what I'm doing, because it's something I really enjoy. If I don't look forward to that mating or that particular litter, then need to probably head a different direction. But definitely feel strongly in as far as having purebreds involved. As far as like my own personal success on the crossbred thing and market hog shows, you do not have to go very far to find a purebred hog in the pedigree. As far as in particular Yorkshire sows for me is what has worked well. I breed a lot of Yorkshire sows, the black terminal boars, to make blues, and keep a lot of those daughters back then to maybe mate again to either black terminals, or you can do a lot of different directions at that point in time. But I guess I'm a good advocate for purebred things. I maybe get a little outside the box on that as far as working in some Chesters and Durocs here and there. I've done that at times the last 2 or 3 years, and it's worked for me. And I like doing that, and gives me something a little different to work with. And I wouldn't go recommend doing it on everything, but I do like for sure throwing in a little something different when we can, instead of for lack of a better term, breeding mongrel to mongrel, maybe, 17 generations of crossbred onto a sow that is 3 or 4 generations is crossbred, and after that you may not even know. Keeping the purebred thing worked in there, I think, is a good idea, and it's something that I think is key to my success.
We're missing a mongrel enthusiast on this panel, by the way.
Well, part of the country I live in, as I mentioned before, we're in bear country, and our sows will probably look a little different than some. You go through our sow lots, and you're going to see sows that could probably some of them could go win a barra show. I mean, that's the way they look. You got to have that to produce that upper level barra. But there's a fine line in there where you get them too extreme. They can't have pigs. They won't milk. They won't breed back. We try to get that look with all those basic characteristics in that sow. Now, we've been doing it, like I said, 20 years, and we've got a set of sows that'll do that for you that will look like a barra. So it's hard to do. It's a fine line, but we found a way to do it. Now, our boars will be a little more extreme probably in shape and muscle, and putting on those sows to make that special barra. Also, in the recent years, we've found a lot of success using purebred hogs to make our crossbreds. We've really used a lot of Hampshire influence here lately, and it's really helped us. Now, maybe not that first generation, but on that second and third generations, we're seeing a lot of benefits of using Hampshire hogs. We use a lot of York hogs on the bottom side and on the dam side. That's helped us out a bunch as far as maternal traits and things and like that. So, like I say, it's a little different in my part of the country, and we have to ride that fence a little bit on getting one that's very productive, but yet we'll kick out that show barra that'll make it work for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the purebreds, they need to be maintained to keep consistency and production and a lot of those basic things in there. And I think you can breed cross to cross for some generations, but I think you have to be smarter. And the people that have done that and had really good success have used a purebred approach to breeding hogs in terms of line breeding and inbreeding to make those hogs more consistent. But for the general run of people and for the good of the industry, I think the purebreds are always going to have that place to maintain that soundness and balance and production and consistency. We've got more cross sows at home now than we've probably ever had, but we still use a lot of Yorkshires to make crosses, and those crossbred sows they haven't been bred cross for the last 10 generations. We keep the pure in there, and then I think the pures, can be added in here and there for a specific purpose. We've seen people that have put Duroc in crosses and Chester in crosses for some specific purposes that maybe they couldn't have done to get the results that they wanted with another crossbred hog. And so I think the purebreds are still going to be the backbone of the crossbred industry. And as far as the challenge of, should we have maternal line or terminal line or combination line, the challenge is to do both in one animal. I mean, that is the challenge. And yet there's breeders across the country that concentrate in specific areas. And I think it's very important for the industry people and the young people that maybe didn't grow up raising hogs that come to a show and they say, well, that hog there, they don't have any muscle at all. And I think it's important not to get too critical of people, because if you look back over the swine industry, we've always gone back to some of those people when we needed to. And most of those people have been purebreds. You can go back and look at it time after time. When Hampshires needed muscle, they went back to the old Newland hogs and those types of families that bred those hogs the same way for years and years and years. Same way in the maternal side, there's folks that concentrate on that specifically, and there's times where the industry that we're working in goes back and pulls from those, and that's really important to maintain that diversity, I think, in the purebred industry.
Well, I definitely don't think I agree with everybody here. I definitely don't think we're building a maternal line and a terminal line, because we're basically through the junior associations and CPS and NSR and ABA, we're maintaining breed identity, true breed identity with real heritage. And Seed Stock Edge advertisement there from NSR always used to have without a paper, it's just another pig, or it's just a pig without a paper. And that's true. It's not just a piece of paper. That pedigree is the lineage all the way back, legitimate lineage, and we need to treat it like a legitimate lineage, not just a piece of paper and just throw something on there. It needs to actually be how that hog's bred. And crossbreds have lineage also. They don't have pedigrees as of yet, but we still need to know why, whether it's a pure or a cross, why those hogs look the way they do, or why they bred on or why they didn't. The use of the purebreds in the show pig industry is huge. It takes elite purebreds to build elite crossbreds. At least one side of the pedigree somewhere along the line. There's a lot of black terminal boars that are used that are low percentage Pietrin and high percentage Hampshire that get used back on a lot of pure sows. We have a lot of a Yorkshire sow base at home now that we make a lot of those blues just like the rest of them. These guys do with using the black terminals on the Yorkshire sows. But the fact that we have these shows and we actually show by breed and by pedigree, we're maintaining breed identity. God put every breed of hog on this earth not to do the same things. He made Durocs to grow. When we needed growth, that's what we used used to be a 3-breed terminal rotation. If you needed growth in your herd, you put a set of Duroc boars back in. If you needed to raise pigs, you used Yorkshires or Landrace. If you needed muscle and cutability, you used Hampshires, and all the other breeds blend in meat quality with Berkshires. Every breed has something that they bring to the table. And the ability to use those and put them together is again kind of a neat thing to build those elite crossbreds also. So I think it's we have I think an advantage over the commercial industry, because commercial industry is more company hog oriented, to where basically they have their numbered lines that at various times use purebreds to go back in and build their crossbred lines, but they build just a terminal line and a maternal line. Our challenge, which is again another neat challenge in the show pig and the purebred industry, is to be able to have that challenge of making hogs within those breeds that do raise pigs as a maternal line, that will have cutability as far as muscle, that will have growth and performance in within each and every breed.
I'll start this question with admitting that I'm as competitive as anybody, and we do a lot of things to win. Last week I'm driving down the road and I hear a National Public Radio expose, so to speak, about the horse racing industry and how there are people in the horse racing industry that have possibly crossed the ethical line in what it takes to make a horse run faster. Many horses are breaking their legs and doing different things that the horse was not intended to do, so they say. Do we have things happening that are not ethical to pig raising in this barn? If we had National Public Radio come and do an expose, walk through this barn, would they present a positive image about how kids are taking care of pigs in order to win the grand prize? We'll start with Jim.
Again, like I think anything, any industry, any job, there you have a small percentage of people that try to push the envelope, that want to basically their only challenge is to try to beat the system. I mean, it's that's life. It's not pig industry. It's not cattle industry. It's not anything. I think basically that this whole industry is full of really good people, whether they have a farm background or whether they're from town. They have a work ethic and they actually care about these animals. They don't want to crash their projects. They don't want to see these animals hurt. And like Brandon was talking, they live a life of fluffy shavings and getting a bath every day and exercised and walked and groomed with brushes, and they're treated really well. And there's lots of show feeds available with lots of additives, and those additives are not put out there to do bad things to the animals. It's basically just like a diet for humans. It's like a diet or a nutritional type of program. If you're built a certain way and you need something else in your diet, or you need vegetables or what have you, a certain type of vitamin, you tried to balance your nutrition. And that's the way that the whole nutritional program is put together for livestock, is basically to do the very best for the right animals. And it's the people's responsibility to use the right balance and the right additives to get the best out of their project to make them the very best. They're not out there to wreck anything. And I think that, again, that 99.9% of the people within this industry, they're going to be looked at as doing the right thing.
I think anytime you do something or are involved in something that maybe somebody else doesn't view as productive, you're open for criticism because of perception and a lack of knowledge. And I think our industry faces that. They don't understand. They think it's all about winning, and it really isn't. And I would argue that the people in our industry are good people. They do it right. And that the animals in these kids' care have better nutrition, housing, and care than a lot of kids in this country. And if activists really want to make an impact in this world, maybe they should concentrate on something where they can make more of a difference to the human side and some of the things that kids go through in this country. The kids involved in this industry, they grow up to be productive adults through this, and a lot of it is through what they learn in caring for their animals.
My answer to that question I would say yes. They would have a positive difference if they walked through these barns. I think they would see families working with their young people, sitting in their lawn chairs, eating lunch, working with their pigs. I don't think they would see the negative parts that a few bad apples will spoil the bunch, if you want to say. I think they would be impressed with what they're seeing going on with this kids working with their pigs, the parents working with their kids, the whole program that we have going on. The reason I say that, at OYE this year, we had a TV station approach us from New York that wanted to follow our show pig program through the process of the show, and we invited them in. I mean, I thought that'd be a good idea, them to see what actually goes on behind the scenes, and they came in from the start of the show when we were getting ready, loading up, all the way to the end of the grand drive there, and I think their intentions coming in, they wanted to see the bad parts of what went on in the show. They've heard some things probably, and they were into the Desperate Housewives situation, or the Housewives of New Jersey. They wanted to see drama, and the name of it was Hog Eat Hog, I think, when they first was going to build this story. And they went away from OYE and they called it Pampered Pigs. Is what they changed their mind to. And there was not one, I read through the deal there, and there wasn't one negative thing they had to say. They were so overwhelmed with how the kids could communicate to them, how the parents were working and spending family time with their kids at this show, and how competitive those kids were, but yet how graceful they were when they lost. They learned how to deal with losing and winning, and it was just a really positive transformation, I guess you'd say, from what they initially thought coming in to what they found when they got in there. Well, that's what they thought they was going to get, a little drama, parents fighting, competing, kids hitting it.
I think anytime you put people in a competitive situation, it's kind of like Jim said, whether it's livestock shows or athletic events or just business, people are going to push it to try to win if they can. But at the same time, the vast majority, again, of the people here and the kids are all here for the right reasons. And if you went through that barn, you talk about going through that barn, there are more people and families here that are here to show off their kids than to show off their pig. There's a higher percentage of that than people that came here with the intentions of winning this show. I mean, in my opinion, they're here to spend some time with their family, let their kids get some experience, and here to promote their kids or their grandkids or family or students. There's way more people here than necessarily trying to win this show, and I think that's something that maybe at times gets lost in the shuffle.
I just want a quick follow-up to that, because I think it's the way to close, is that we admit that there are a few, Jim says 0.01% bad actors. how tough is it and how important is it that we self-police? If we know somebody's doing something wrong, it's not easy to walk up to them and say, hey, look, you're shedding a bad light on me. Just in your final thought and then any other final conclusion to today's program, how do we self-police, and what are your words of wisdom to anybody that might be listening?
I think there's a lot of steps that are being done to self-police, especially at these major stock shows that have a big prize at the end. I mean, they have to pass tests and do blood work and urine samples and stuff like that. I mean, you can police and police and police, but there'll always be a loophole. I mean, if somebody wants to push it, they'll push it. So, and if you get to policing it too hard, you make it uncomfortable for that 99.9% of people that you don't need to be policed. So I think that a lot of the things are being done that need to be done, and especially, again, here when you win, they're going to pull some DNA on you, make sure those pedigrees are correct, and those things that how those animals were registered is true and correct. And I think a lot of things are being done. It's not like it's just a free-for-all. It by no means is that. So there are some things that probably could be critiqued here or there, but by no means do I think that there aren't several things already being done.
It's been, as you know, I got probably one of the more competitive groups, especially in our state, as far as families and parents, and I guess I self-police about every day at my job. That's what I do a lot of times is kind of keep them on track, and because they want to win, they work hard and they want to win. I've got several families that fight it hard, and you know it's. I think when you get them as young as I do, and you can kind of get them molded into watching the older ones that do it right and have success, that throws out a lot of your problems. You know, like we said, we breed most of our own hogs, and if you can build those hogs that are skeletally right and that will mature right, you don't have to push the envelope. A good hog, every good hog I've ever showed, I've never had a shot. I mean, every one I can think of that we've won with was one that you didn't have to push the envelope on him. He was right and skeletally right, sound, grew good, had muscle, and you just, you know, you worked with him and showed him, and so, you know, I think the bigger portion of that is as we're breeding these hogs and we build them, if we build them right, then get them right, you don't have to do a lot of extras, you know, and that's what's nice. A lot of those kids will come up through there and watch a family that I have that's successful. They'll try to mimic them, and they're doing it right. Well, they're building a program for my future, so that's what's helped my program. And today, I very seldom have to get on anybody or intervene with them or what they're doing, because we've kind of built it from the bottom up. So,
yeah, I think what guys like Bob does is really, really important. And the rest of us that may not get a chance to work with as many kids as he does, I think from a mentor or portion standpoint, I think if you teach these kids young enough to maintain their integrity and their ethics, I think it takes care of itself. And yet I still say that a lot of the criticism that the show pig industry or the swine industry in general gets has to do with perception and misinformation, and we've got to do a better job of educating the public about that. And I think the TV that followed his group there, I think is a huge positive for our industry, particularly if they get out and publicize that and people are able to see it and see what they actually do there. I think it's a tremendous positive for us in this industry.
Well, I think it's important, and several other things we've been talking about today about being proactive in the approach instead of just kind of, like Brandon said, sitting back and taking it, and basically putting it in front of people to let them know that how everything is going as far as the right things that are accomplished. They need to realize that these junior programs that we do self-police and we do self-educate to know what's right and wrong, and that each of these kids that exhibit in all these shows around the country, they have to go through the Pork Quality Assurance Plus program, which is a learning process of basically how to take care of livestock, the right things to do, and the wrong things to stay away from. And the fact that those educational programs come together to bring all that about, there's so many things that are being done right. We just need to basically voice that more to people who are uneducated about what it is we do and why we do it. The great thing about, I was telling the guys here a little bit ago, the great thing about what's happening here at the World Pork Expo and so many other places in the country with the NJSA and Team Purebred shows, it's brought families back into farming and families back into the livestock business, whereas it's kind of been taken away from us somewhat. I know there's some families that own some corporate-sized commercial farms, and that's great. There's some supporters of the Junior Association that are involved, and we really appreciate their support. But it's taken a family atmosphere out of it quite a bit when it's gotten that big. And this is where families can come together, have friendships, enjoy a picnic together out behind the barn, visit about old times, and make new friends around the country. And this has brought kids from California with kids from Maryland and the other corners of the country. I mean, and they all get along. And that's kind of what it's all about, is building relationships and building a sense of responsibility and having some leadership skills.
Well, to put it in a nutshell, folks, I think we talked about feed, we talked about AI, we talked about purebreds, we talked about ethics, but the moral of the story is that we talked about finding ways to develop leaders and role models, not just for the future of agriculture, but for the future of our great free country. On behalf of Jim McCoy, Steve Rodabaugh, Bob Liston, and Brandon Ogle, I'm Trent Luce. And thanks to SureChamp and Drive Magazine for creating this unprecedented opportunity for unfiltered discussion and dialogue here at the World Pork Expo 2012. I want to remind you that we're going to do this one more time, 6:30 this evening. We'll see you right back here under the same big top in Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you.